Okay, so we're in an interesting time now when it comes to shipping. I just got one of my suppliers contacted me saying air shipping went up like quadruple. And at first I thought maybe she was exaggerating. And I reached out to my friend Pam Cail here from RPC Logistics, and Pam confirmed that there's a lot going on in the shipping world right now. So now we're kind of weighing out options, which I thought was a good opportunity to hit the record button and see what we can do to help people as we're all trying to work through our new quote unquote normal. But at the end of the day, we can't control the wind, but we can control the set of our sails here. So let's figure out what we can do to set the sails right and uh, get into keeping ourselves in stock and selling stuff. So Pam, thanks for coming on today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, definitely. Well, do you mind just real quick giving quick elevator pitch of who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm Pam Cail of RPC Logistics, and I've been in the business 38 years. This is the most unique time I've ever been in the business. I have an enormous amount of expertise in shipping and moving things in and out of the country, as far as just container business. And then about 6 years ago, when e-commerce came in, I went on the road and started doing a PAM 101, teaching Amazon sellers how to actually ship and import and export, to be a big support for them and to make sure that they had the full circle and there wasn't huge holes, and they were being misled by so many that were just interested in taking their money rather than making sure the product got on the Amazon shelf. So that's me in my elevator speech.
Love it. And that's the thing, is that it has to go from point A to point B. If point A is your factory in China or India or wherever, you got to get into Amazon's shelf. Otherwise, you don't have a product for sale. So that's a very important piece there. And you and I have worked together on some shipments and things of that nature. So I can vouch that you know what you're talking about. And we first, I think I got connected to you because I heard with you on a podcast somewhere, and then we've met at a couple conferences as well. So,
Right.
So let's talk now brass tacks a little bit more about like what you said that this is I should phrase it this way. You said this is the most unique time period in your 38 years in the business, which you must have started when you were 5.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. So,
I love the camera.
So anyway, really my question is more, what makes this so unique, and why are we seeing what we're seeing?
Well, the traditional, this is the way that you do it, we've done it for 10 years, so forth, is not really what you're supposed to do anymore, because things have changed because of the coronavirus and because of the supply and demand. So those that are, staying firm, saying that they're going to do it this way because they've always done it this way for 20 years, they're going to be the ones that are going to be sitting on the corner. And those that are more flexible, that are able to work within the system and use some of the tools out there that possibly even the carriers have started and implemented, will make sure that they are getting their freight to the Amazon shelf. And that's the goal. I mean,
right.
And whether you're an online, entrepreneur, or your FBA, FBM, the goal is have this product available so that you can sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just take a step back here real quick. Make sure that everyone really understands, why is it, like, for example, the air freight is going up so much, like just from a supply and demand standpoint?
What happens on air cargo, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that when you're traveling on an airplane as a human, you're paying X $100 for a seat. Well, at the belly of the plane, that's where the cargo goes. So because you're paying a premium price for your 2x4 seat, then the cargo doesn't have to be at that rate. So you're getting a discount, basically send in a box rather than a human. Well, if there are no humans on it offsetting that pricing, then the cargo goes up. And the less, they have taken out so many airplanes now, because there wasn't enough humans flying, nor was there enough cargo being made while China was down, so that the cargo planes were also being taken out too.
Hmm.
If you had a pallet of, some of the larger companies have pallets of freight that they import, and they put them on a pallet and then they just roll them up, basically with a forklift onto these huge cargo planes.
Hmm.
Well, they took four of them out right away. So when people did have a pallet, you can't fit a pallet on a passenger plane. So then it had to be unmanned. Yeah, it had to be taken apart by humans, and then it was manually put into the belly of a human cargo plane. So no one's going to do that for free. So once again, you
Mm.
had another extra handling of regular standard, what we're used to, air freight. And there's not that anymore. In fact, just today, I was trying to get some actual medical booties here, and China would not even offer an air freight rate for me, because they are so backlogged that they're 10 to 12 days behind, and the air freight that they would quote me today would not be what would be in 2 weeks. So they said
Mm.
that we're just not even going to quote and make the mistake, and so forth. So that's one of the really, really hit you in the face when they won't even quote it even high on that. But I have heard that they're looking at, it's going to be $20 a kilo for air freight by the time this gets through.
Oh, wow. So what was it before, just for reference?
Oh, $4, and that
Oh,
was kind
wow.
of on the high side,
Yeah,
and so you got to figure, when your supplier said quadruple, and quadruple
that was
is,
actually good.
yeah, that was a good rate.
Wow. So what I'm understanding is there's fewer planes going back and forth.
Yes.
And we've all probably seen, there was a graphic that was shared around on Facebook. Some people might have seen, where it was like the planes in China before the coronavirus and then after, like the travel ban or whatever. And it was like
Right.
drastically fewer planes. So, and that was
Yes.
just within China, but I would imagine this is probably very similar, when like the US isn't doing passenger planes back and forth the way we were, and other countries probably the same. So that definitely affects how much inventory of space there is to put your boxes and cases in a plane. So what about sea
Exactly.
shipping? Like, is that pushing more people to sea shipping? Is there, because we did a live a
Yes.
couple weeks ago where we talked about how, like, oh, they're empty ships and it's getting dirt cheap.
Right, right. Well, that changed, because they have now they're taking on this smaller cargo, that is getting more expensive, because sea shipping was never meant for small
Hmm.
cargo because of the minimums. So it's not as good of a deal for the typical Amazon seller, unless you've got a significant volume. Also, with the sea shipping, we're seeing that they are taking out vessels. They call them blank vessels now. 2 years ago they were canceled sailings. Every time there's something, they have a new acronym or a new word. Well, they're called blank sailings now. Pretty much, there was MSC took all of theirs out for the
What
Antwerp
again is a
route.
blank sailing?
A
Just to make sure I
blank
understand.
sailing is the same thing as it's a canceled sailing. So, like, 2 years
Oh, okay.
ago, we called them canceled sailings. Now we call them blank sailings.
So they're
So,
basically just not happening.
yes, right. So, and it's the same, the same difference basically to you and me. Maybe, if I sat on the steamship line, it may have some sort of difference, but if it's not going, it's not going. You can call it blank, canceled, void, whatever you want,
Right.
but I can't put my freight on it, so it's no use to me. And
Right.
that's
Exactly.
and that's what they're doing now. They're reducing the amount of freight and steamship lines carrying the freight, and that is on the other side, causing what we would normally think of as no port congestion, but because of the employee status and the lockdowns, we are at the port not having the same amount of people.
Okay.
So we've got less steamship lines coming in,
Mm-hmm.
less containers, but we
Mm-hmm.
also have a lot less employees to handle those. So that's
Mm.
where the port congestion comes in. Whereas normally when you have a time period that there's less cargo coming in, you don't have congestion. But see, now we're getting faced with, once it's here
Mm-hmm.
in New York and LA, the people aren't there to man it. So 3 people are doing the work of 10.
Mm.
Well, if you only have, a third of the ships not coming in, you're still off balance. So that's where the port congestion, and there's going to be a port congestion surcharge, I feel, coming soon.
Oh, gotcha. So they might be charging additional fees.
Yes, because they're
Okay.
going to have to be paid overtime, and we're going to have to pay that, the port and the people.
Oh, how fun. All right. So let's talk now. Now that we've given this kind of almost
Yeah.
grim picture, this is not our
Sorry.
intent here. No. You're giving a realistic picture. I think we have to be very realistic, because I think at any time we're trying to figure out problem solving, we have to figure out realistically, where are we now and where are we trying to get to? So if our ultimate goal is to get goods on the shelves in Amazon, assuming we can create the shipments, well, let's just assume at some point at the time of recording this, Amazon's still restricting certain products to get into the warehouse. But let's just assume that eventually will take its course. So you're sending stuff by sea. So it sounds like more and more people are going to have to send by sea, because at least, even if there's congestion charges, it's still more economical from the most part. And I know in the past, I think you had said like 1 or 2 cubic meters.
Right.
Um,
Two CBMs, 2 to 3 CBMs is the ideal sea freight. Then, I mean, the least that makes sense, because it does have minimums. Sea freight, it's a 1 CBM minimum. Okay. Well, everything else is a minimum too. $10. It's $3 a CBM, or a minimum of 10.
mhm.
Well, right there tells you that, okay, sending 1 CBM, you're going to end up paying for 3 anyways, for a
Right.
certain port charge. So go ahead and get the best for your dollar. And that's where the 2 and 3 CBMs
Right.
comes in.
But it sounds to me like if on the other side of the equation you're trying to decide where does the math work out, because there's so many fixed costs in sea shipping, that if you're trying to
Yes.
figure out sea versus air, if air is 4 or 5x, well, that's going to tip the scales on smaller shipments towards sea, at least from
Right.
the price per unit. But then the challenge we're going to run into there is timing. So let's just talk about, from a high level standpoint, what are some of the main ports people ship into, both on the East and the West Coast?
The main port, of course, number one port is our Los Angeles Long Beach port,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for sea shipping. And it normally is a 13 to 15 day sea shipping on the water travel time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, unless it's really really hot, that's understandable. So being flexible and being a little more agile, a little outside the box here that we're having to do, we can bring your freight into Long Beach and for 13 to 15 days. And if you needed it, I mean, super hot, super fast, let's get it on a guaranteed truck, or something like that, so that we can, or UPS it or DHL it internationally, USPS it domestically, so that you can get it across to your Amazon location. Say
Mm-hmm.
if it's came into Long Beach and you needed it to Kentucky, like yesterday.
Right.
Well, let's see how we can get. Maybe courier service inside might be a little high, but it's a lot better than being out or paying 4 and 5 times the entire amount going from China to here. So that's what I was saying at the very beginning, and you were too.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time to you can't always say that this is what I used to do. Maybe that's not good right now. Maybe paying a little bit higher for a minimum shipment for sailing um, is the smartest way to go
Hmm.
at this point in time than paying 4 or 5 times the amount that for air freight. That's you've got to weigh out the issues. Now, the other main port is New York. Well, that is an all water port. So we've got each side of the United States. That's an all water. So we're looking, if at best scenario would be 38 days to have a ship go all water.
Right, because it has to
And
go through the Panama Canal, right? That's what kind of slows it down
exactly
versus Long Beach. It's not just, it's the opposite side of the
right.
country. There's land in the middle.
Exactly. So that even if you were going to New York, and needed it on, say in New Jersey, I mean, you still have 25 days there that it's on the water before you even can move it quickly to New Jersey. So
Okay.
you've got to lay out and think, okay, is this going to be better for you to do, to go Long Beach and maybe courier it to New Jersey, or get a guaranteed fast truck or a team truck, or do you wait the 40 days and then bring it into New Jersey? See, in the old days, which, was 3 months ago, that you would wait and you'd bring it in because, ships were always moving around and you wouldn't have a problem.
Mm.
So now you kind of have to think, and this is where your freight forwarder and your chat rooms and your mentors really can help you, because this is where you kind of discuss it out, lay it out on the table,
Hmm.
and say, what's better for me. Yes, I didn't pay the price I did for sea freight 6 months ago, but I'm not paying 5 or 6 times the air freight amount either, or not even
Mm.
getting a rate. You know, if it's going to sit there on the tarmac for 12 days in China, that's not really air freight, is it? You
Right.
know,
Yeah. Let's come to that here in a second. Okay. So just to recap with the sea shipping, because you said a lot there and I want to make sure I understood it
okay.
all correctly. So basically, your main ports are Los Angeles, Long Beach, New York. I also
Yes.
like to do Miami, but from what you and I talked about, there's oftentimes a lot more stops along the way before it gets to Miami. So sometimes it's a few days slower. Whereas to New York, it's usually kind of a straight path, right? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that is. And
And yeah, okay. So it's one of those things we got to really look at what are our times to get it there, because if there's less sailings, it could affect when it leaves port, which it's, that's kind of when the clock starts, right?
right, right. And if they took out a sailing that usually stops at, say you're leaving from we'll say Shenzhen, and
Hmm.
it goes from Shenzhen up to Xiamen, up to um, Shanghai, and then Qingdao, and then out. Okay,
Mm,
well, it's taken 4 or 5 days stopping at each port before it even leaves China,
right.
because now the steamship line that had Xiamen and Qingdao aren't in service anymore. So that's where you've got to
Mm,
talk with your freight forwarder, and you got to say, okay, I need to know what the sailing routing is now. I
hmm.
don't I don't think if you Googled it, you would get the most accurate sailing schedule if you put in a carrier. I don't think, usually they have a little, routing, and they have like little drawing and all that of how
Right.
it should go. I think those are old. I don't think they're going to be up to date as we see things evolve so quickly.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, there's lots of updates. So you can't just go on the website. You really need to talk to somebody to, to figure out your
Right.
situation. So then let's talk a little bit about kind of what you were saying with air shipping. So with air shipping, we kind of assume, it's going to be a few days because, maybe it's a day or two on the tarmac, like you described, and then, a day or two to get over to Memphis or wherever it's flying to, and then some hub from there to where it needs to go. But
Right.
now you're saying it might sit on the tarmac. So is there congestion in the airports for air shipping?
Yes, there is, because there's not enough planes to move out the wanted freight.
Hmm.
Also, you need to look at the the retail market. All right, we're kind of looking at ourselves, with
Big
Amazon and so
picture, yeah.
forth. But look at the big picture. All right, Macy's, Dillard's, all those places that we can't go to now, but we did, and now
Mhm.
we're shopping online. They book a year ahead of time for their gowns to come in air freight, for their, whatever, their
Right.
spring bonnets to come in air freight, whatever. They've got that in their contract. So that those contracts, I have not heard anyone say that those contracts are null and void. So those people have already bought your space and they have to move first. Then then we basically are getting the leftovers. Whereas before, there was enough airplanes out there and enough cargo planes that it didn't bother us, but a small time,
Right.
you know.
So, how long are you seeing it's taking for an air shipment to go from Shanghai or wherever to, let's say, Tennessee?
The last one that I got out ended up being a 20-day period.
20 days for air shipping?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Now it
so
was not 5 times the rate,
right.
but but it still was. I mean, yes, it did make it 5 days, maybe 6 days ahead of what I could have done on sea freight.
Hmm.
But the in my mind, it wasn't air freight.
Got it. So it sounds like more and more people are going to have to lean towards sea shipping. And so for the one shipment
Yes.
that you and I are working on together, most likely I'm going to end up sea, because I don't even know if like sending a portion of it, which I used to would have thought like, okay, maybe a portion of it will do air and the rest of it will do sea. But I don't even know if that makes sense right now, because
Mm-mm. It
it
really
might not
doesn't.
get here that much sooner. And
If sooner at all.
right,
You
sooner at
know,
all. And I'm paying a lot for that.
exactly. Yeah, and the prices now. I mean, I actually just went out to one of the couriers and asked
Hmm.
for a price. Now, couriers do this dimensional weight, so your
Right,
product is always higher than than the actual dims that you've got.
right.
Okay, the it ended up being close to $86 a kilo
Oh
by
my
the
gosh.
time it was dimensional weight.
Like,
Now,
oh, the actual kilogram of it. I
yes,
mean, are these like
yes.
lampshades or something that's kind of like got a lot of space in it,
Yeah,
or?
well, they were light. They were
Hmm.
light, but it was and this was a large shipment. This was 5,600 kilos. The
Oh
actual
wow.
Yeah, it actually was over a $500,000 to send this product from Shanghai to Minneapolis.
Oh wow. That's yeah.
Yes, I
That's
know,
crazy.
and it was more than the product. Now, will we might do this? As crazy as it is, this is one of the medical necessities that are
Ah,
needed
okay.
for the coronavirus, and we may not send all 5,000 kilos. Maybe we'll send 2,000, but we we're really looking at different options at these astronomical prices.
Now, are you seeing anything with preference of what gets out of the country if it's one of these essential items like masks or something else that has to do with, COVID related?
I haven't personally dealt with anything like that, but I have heard that they are prioritizing in China.
Okay.
I have heard that, and I think they should. I can't really blame them for that until
Sure.
we get to a level here that everybody is safe.
Uh-huh.
As much as I would love to have my teapot on Amazon again that I buy, I'd really would rather have the masks come in and have the people be safe. So
Sure,
I've,
sure.
I've had to kind of, put my spoiled ideas and all that on the back burner too. So now
Right.
I do want to tell you one thing that they have come out with, the steamship lines.
Okay.
In order to keep, and I think this is kind of this is certainly a change of times. In
Hmm.
order to keep the production going, because this is going to end at some point, this stay at home and everyone in lockdown and so
Right.
forth. So we're going to go back to the retail, and we're going to go back to shopping and so forth. So in order to keep production going, they have the steamship lines have instituted this, it's called the SOT program,
Okay.
and where it's it is where, and I've got to read this because it's brand spanking new. It's where they schedule transit times, but they actually put a pause in shipping. So it goes ahead and
Mm.
is manufactured in China, sales to, we'll say, Freeport in the
Hmm.
United States, and then it will stay there at a hub, because that is a transship location, so it's safe. It's already 4 vessels, so it'll stay there for a week or two, or however long it is, and then it'll be that much closer to the United States once we get back. It won't have to do the full sailing. So
I'm not
the
sure I'm completely following this. So
okay,
just describe this again,
all
and
right. So
maybe I'm just a little slow.
that's all right. That's all right. This was certainly an interesting concept. So what they're doing is that they are actually putting, they're keeping China moving. They're keeping
Right.
China manufacturing,
Uh-huh.
putting the containers, full containers, on the steamship line, on the
Uh-huh.
vessel,
Uh-huh.
and they're presenting the bill of lading and so forth in the ISF to the United States as cargo coming.
Uh-huh.
However, it's not coming as fast. There's going to be a stopping point, a pause, because right now no one needs the products that are on these containers. But as soon as we get back and out of lockdown, and we get back into the environment and do our normal living, then instead of the actual freight taking 30 days or 40 days, we'll say,
Hmm.
it's only going to take 10 days to get at the port, cleared, and at the store.
So are you saying it's staying like at a port in China?
And no, it's going to stay at a port in the United States.
Oh, gotcha. So they're basically saying they'd be more likely to hold it at the port, because before they would have never allowed it to stay at the port
Right.
because they're trying to just get stuff in and out, but now they have a little bit more space.
Right. So
So
they're
what is
using
the benefit to that? Like, why would, like, is that something you get
the,
forced
well,
upon you, or is that hey, this is a good thing to do and you do it?
no, this isn't forced. It's a good thing to do,
Okay.
and this is probably more for the larger companies.
Uh-huh.
But as we know, China can only hold so much product before they have to stop making it.
Right.
So we'll just take mattresses. Okay, that
Okay.
seems to be a big thing. And, all right, so they're making mattresses. All right, well, if they keep on making mattresses or cushions for lawn chairs or whatever, they're actually going to run out of room in their manufacturing plant. So they're saying, hey, let's put it on the container. Let's get the container moving,
Okay.
but don't deliver it to the destination port.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to hold it at a transship location, and I want it held at the transship location that is only 5 to 10 days out from my actual destination. So these transship locations are all around the world,
What would
basically.
be an example of one of those?
Um, One would be to load up, go ahead, and Freeport. As I said, Freeport's one of the
Oh,
transship.
Freeport, Bahamas.
Yes,
Okay,
so
got it.
that's one of
Okay.
the transloads and transship. It usually sits there anyways for a few days, and then everyone kind of gathers around, and then they make their containers and change them up so that they can move on,
Uh-huh.
efficiently. Well, this time we're going to make our full container, and it's just going to dock there,
Got
and
it.
we're going to
So
say, okay, we're going to stay here until Costco, you need me.
got it. So the benefit is it's almost kind of like an intermediate warehouse.
Yes,
But for those of us who are trying to stay in stock, that might not be something we want to do. But is that
exactly.
something someone could potentially, like if they're doing a full container, take a half of the container and store it in one of those locations and then
They
the other
could.
half bring it in right
They
away?
could. Yes.
Okay, so that's something to think
Yes.
about.
So, well, and also, if people don't want to pay duty and taxes if they're not selling it.
Okay, so
So
you
this
can
kind of
kind of
delays the
delay the
duty and
duties and
taxes too.
taxes. Okay,
So, you're not paying for your cost of goods, and you're not paying your expenses out that have to be paid before you get it. So
got it.
some of the larger steamship lines are trying to help out basically the economy, and make some of this available. That's like I said, that this certainly more flexible, and they're charging basically storage rates, but instead of $150 a day, it's more like $24 a day. So,
Oh,
you
gotcha.
know,
So you'd
there,
really need a decent size for the math to make sense for you.
yes, yes.
Okay.
But that that is something, it's they always start with the larger customers,
Hmm.
and then, they kind of figure out how it helps the smaller customer.
Gotcha. So I think if there's one takeaway I would take from this conversation and the conversation we had just 2-3 weeks ago, um, this is a constantly moving thing. So by the time this airs here in a couple of weeks, it's probably going to be completely different. So at least if anything, and I'll make sure to link in the description and in the show notes for this episode. But what I would say is know kind of where things are going and where they've been so you can adapt to it and then talk to somebody who's in the trenches on this. So like, for example,
Right.
I would suggest that, maybe reach out to you to get a quote or
Sure.
just ask for, hey, what is the latest? Because every time I talk to you, there's this new thing that it wasn't there the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So I have trouble keeping up. And, now that I understand what you're saying with the trans locations and all these other things that could, and maybe that becomes a better option for someone that has like, just a half a container load of stuff, down the
Right.
road, maybe that starts making more sense. So I guess it really just comes down to, you really just got to talk to someone. And then at the end of the day, once the quarantines are lifted and the planes are flying back and forth, this could also change the math on air freight too. So if we were to boil this episode down to one thing, talk to somebody who's in the trenches, because I'm sure you're seeing changes on a daily, weekly basis.
Yes, yes. And I would highly recommend that some of the webinars that are out there, um, you know, I know they seem really boring and,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe monotonous, but they do mention some things that are very accurate and also important to the Amazon sellers. Now, I
Okay.
look at them from that point of view because that's where my customers are. Um, and that's where the larger people, the larger conferences, so forth, are because they were not scheduled. Well, excuse me, they were scheduled. They did not
Mm-hmm.
come to be.
Right.
They are taking the knowledge that we would have heard if we would have gone to the conferences and putting them on these podcasts or these weekly
Mm-hmm.
talks or whatever. So more people are trying to get this out, um,
Right.
and trying to help people, which I think is really nice. No matter what the size is, I think it's very good that people are trying to show everyone, like the FBM versus FBA.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get those, let's get the warehouses, that can do FBM, you know, uh, let's get them rolling while Amazon is dealing with the coronavirus, the medical
Right.
ones. So it doesn't mean you have to stop and just basically shut down. It just means you have to change gears, and
Hmm.
that's and look, no one loves their rut more than I do, but this is the time that you really need to look in the mirror and say, hey, you might have to take a little leap and go outside the box and just listen to what other people are saying, because it will keep you going. And that's why we're doing this today.
Hmm.
We want to make sure that that if your supplier tells you that you can't ship, or it's 4 or 5 times the amount, I'm telling you that that's true. But that's not to say that it's always going to be true. I
Right. Exactly.
definitely, I'm the cheerleader for everybody. I never want, to be the Miss Doom and Gloom, because
Right.
I mean, I think it's marvelous what we have done in America for the Amazon entrepreneurs and the online e-commerce world.
Hmm.
It's given people opportunity that they would never have. Well, let's not stop that. Let's take this time at home, and let's just kind of reinvent the wheel, or get together with some of your buddies and see what brainstorming comes up.
Right. Exactly. Sometimes when you mastermind with other people, you find opportunities, because at the end of the day, this too shall pass. And the more
Yes,
we focus on what are the solutions, understand, as Tony Robbins would say, be realistic as to where it is now. Don't make it better and don't make it worse. So know what it
right.
actually is now, and then figure out a course of action. And then as time changes, then just shift with it and know you're going to have to probably change. And then most likely things will get better. I don't know where we are in the cycle of everything, but with sea shipping and air shipping, once stuff starts opening back up, I would imagine there might be a little bit of a backlog, but then things will clear up. That's kind of my prediction.
And I think it will, and I think that's what the basically everybody on the news is saying too.
Hmm.
Yes, this has been a difficult time for all of us, but we will survive, and we will get over it. Now, we've kind of had to um, sing, hold hands and sing kumbaya together on a couple moments and all
Hmm.
that, but together, I think we can certainly do it. I'm here to help anybody and talk over whatever ideas you've got. You're there. You've got friends and family that have listened to you talk about shipping, and I'm sure an outside view sometimes is helpful.
Great. Well, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, where would they go to track you down?
Please email me at pam@rpclogistics.net.
Okay, so Pam at rpclogistics.net, and we'll make
Yes,
sure to include that in the show notes
thank you.
and description as well. So, all right. Well, thanks, Pam. I appreciate you coming on. There's a lot of good information there.
Thank
Um,
you.
and as I said, by the time we hit publish, it may be the same, it may be a little bit different, or maybe completely different. So that's why I think it's
Right.
important that for when you're ready to do a sea shipment, talk to your factory, talk to a freight forwarder, you know, and also talk to other people to see what's going on. So that way you can get a good sense of what's actually happening and make an informed decision.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Pam.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.